Have you ever wondered about the man behind the prancing horse, the legend who painted the racing world red? Today, we're diving deep into the incredible, turbulent, and passion-fueled life of Enzo Ferrari. This isn't just a story about cars. It's a story about a man who sacrificed everything for a dream, a man whose name became synonymous with victory itself. It all began in Modena, Italy, in 1898. Enzo Anselmo Ferrari was born into a world on the cusp of a revolution. His father, Alfredo, ran a metalworking business. And from a young age, Enzo was surrounded by the clang of hammers and the smell of hot steel. But his destiny wasn't in that workshop. It was on the racetrack. At just 10 years old, his father took him to a race in Bologna. The thunder of the engines, the blur of speed, the roar of the crowd. It was an epiphany. Young Enzo was captivated. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he wanted to be a part of that world. He wanted to be a racing driver. But life, as it often does, had other plans. The First World War ripped through Europe, claiming the lives of both his father and his brother. Alfredo Jr. Enzo himself was drafted, served, and barely survived the devastating Spanish flu pandemic that followed. At just 20 years old, he was left alone, with his family's business collapsed and his dreams seemingly shattered. He traveled to Turin, the heart of Italy's burgeoning auto industry, with a letter of recommendation. Hoping to find work at Fiat, he was turned away. Can you imagine? The man who would build one of the world's most powerful brands, rejected at the factory gates. It was a brutal lesson, one that would forge an iron will and a relentless desire to prove his worth. Undeterred, Enzo found a job as a test driver for a small company, and his talent was quickly noticed. This led him to Alfa Romeo, the racing powerhouse of the era. Here, Enzo the driver began to shine. He won races, earned respect, and experienced the thrill of victory he had craved since he was a boy. But even as he succeeded behind the wheel, a different ambition was growing within him. He was a good driver, but he realized he could be a great manager. He had an innate understanding not just of the car, but of the entire operation, the mechanics, the strategy, the politics. In 1929, he took a monumental step. He founded Scuderia Ferrari, Ferrari Stable. At first, it wasn't a car company. It was Alfa Romeo's official racing department. Enzo was the maestro, orchestrating the team, finding the best drivers, and pushing the engineers to their limits. He hung up his own racing helmet for good after the birth of his beloved son, Alfredo, affectionately known as Dino. Now, his focus was singular, winning. Under his leadership, the Scuderia dominated the racing scene. But Enzo's ambition was greater than simply managing another company's team. He wanted his own name on the engine. He wanted to build his own cars. The break from Alfa Romeo was tense. A clause in his contract forbade him from using the Ferrari name in racing for 4 years. So, he bided his time, building machine tools and aircraft parts during the Second World War. His factory was bombed, not once, but twice. He moved his operations from Modena to the nearby town of Maranello, a name that would soon become legendary. And as soon as the war ended and the 4-year clause expired, the dream was reborn. In 1947, the very first car to bear the Ferrari name, the 125S, roared to life. Its powerful V12 engine announced the arrival of a new force in the automotive world. From this point on, Enzo's life was the story of Scuderia Ferrari. Racing was not a marketing tool for him. It was his reason for being. Selling road cars was simply a necessary evil to fund his insatiable passion for the track. He was a notoriously difficult and demanding leader, known as Il Commendatore, the commander. He pitted his drivers against each other, believing the fierce internal competition would push them to be faster. He was often distant, rarely attending races in his later years, preferring to listen by phone from his office in Maranello. He lived in the details, obsessed with every gear, every piston, every fraction of a second. This obsession came at a great cost. His pursuit of victory was relentless and often tragic. The 1950s and 60s were a golden era of success, but also a dark period stained by loss. Many of his drivers' legends, like Alberto Ascari and Luigi Musso, perished behind the wheel of his red cars. He was accused of being cold, of caring more for his machines than for the men who drove them. But beneath the stoic exterior was a man in constant turmoil. He kept a diary of the drivers he had lost and was deeply, privately affected by each tragedy. The most devastating blow came in 1956. His son Dino, the heir he had groomed to take over the company, died from muscular dystrophy at just 24 years old. It was a loss that shattered Enzo. He became even more of a recluse, rarely seen without his dark sunglasses, as if to hide a grief that never faded. In honor of his son, he created a new line of Inginsta, Dino V6, ensuring his name would live on in the heart of Ferrari's creations. Despite the personal pain, the Scuderia fought on. The battle with Ford at Le Mans in the 1960s became the stuff of legend, a corporate David and Goliath story. Even when facing financial trouble, Enzo refused to compromise his vision. In 1969, he sold a 50% stake to Fiat, but with one non-negotiable condition: he would retain complete and total control of the racing division. His life was the Scuderia, and he would not give it up. Enzo Ferrari worked until the very end. He witnessed his team's triumphant return to the top of Formula One with Niki Lauda in the 1970s, and saw the birth of one of the most iconic supercars ever made, the F40, created to celebrate the company's 40th anniversary. It was the last car personally approved by him, a raw, uncompromising testament to his life's philosophy. On August 14, 1988, Enzo Ferrari passed away at the age of 90. In a characteristically private move, his death was not announced until 2 days later to honor his birth date. Just weeks after his passing, at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, Ferrari scored an emotional one to finish. It was a fitting, almost mythical, tribute to the man who started it all. His spirit, it seemed, was still there, pushing his cars across the finish line. Enzo Ferrari was a complex, contradictory figure. He was a tyrant and a visionary, a recluse who created a global symbol of extroverted passion. He wasn't just a car maker, he was an engine builder, a team manager, a racer, and a dreamer. He turned his personal tragedy and relentless ambition into a legacy of beauty, speed, and unwavering passion. The prancing horse is more than just a logo. It's the enduring spirit of Il Commendatore, Enzo Ferrari. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into automotive history. See you in the next one.